evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Time has made known the different factions in Amazonia as well as their intentions. Those who, at one point in the ongoing struggle, claimed to be genuine with the sole goal of freeing Amazonia's southern Cameroons from the La Republic de Cameroon's colonial government. Many of such armed groups ended up revealing who they really are, which turned out to be not for the good of the peoples of Amazonia and Amazonia. Instead, most of which were motivated by greed to pick up arms, with evident acts of such groups on the ground. Well, the set, with their scandalous acts ever being present, have not detracted the ever-focused President Sacco, who announced 2024 the year of and recognition. The vehicle for this year is already set to move steadily and surely to Buea, with President Samuel Ikomo's Sacco as the pilot. The handwriting is clear on the wall that the Amazonian People's Government, led by the focused and resilient leader Samuel Ikome Sacco, is on board, calling the shots and dictating the pace of the revolution, while naysayers and other compromised and brainwashed Southern Cameroons have to drop their pride and ego and join the winning team, or be left behind while the ship sails to Boya. Coming up next will be the prime headlines.
Here are the prime headlines for tonight. Ndump rice farmers cry out for help to boost production. La Republic de Cameroon terrorist helicopter shot down by the Buya warriors. Dr. Sacco revisits darkest pages of the Amazonian struggle. Also tonight, Paramount Fund of Cushion Village in Metcham County sends strong warning to Ayabacho and his boys. Bankolo homeless survivors debunk news that they have received financial assistance. On the African scene, Morocco to lead UN Human Rights Council despite South Africa's disapproval. North Korea conducts artillery drills amid tensions with South Korea is on the foreign scene. Now let's get the news in full briefing. Time has made known the defense group that at one point in the ongoing war in Amazonia, claims were genuine, and the lone goal was to free Amazonian southern Cameroons from La Republic de Cameroon's colonial government. Many of such armed gangs have been exposed to be out not for the good of the people of Amazonia and Amazonians at large. Rather, they are motivated by greed to pick up arms. The acts of such groups on the ground are evident. All that they do is to inflict more pain on the already suffering population and soil the name of the Amazonian State Army. Now, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. How are you doing, Star?
Good evening, Onye. Good evening, Amazonians. Well, the armed group put in place by Ayabacho called the Amazonian Defense Force ADF has been portrayed to the people of Amazonia for not being what they claimed. The people of Amazonia have cried against the suffering meted out on them by these allies of La République du Cameroon's colonial government and its forces. The Fawn of Cochin village in Menchum County sent a strong warning to Ayaba Cho, telling him and his boys enough of their atrocities. Fonju Williams III of Cochin has termed sacrilege and evil the atrocities of the Ayaba Cho and the Amazonian Defense Force (ADF).
Foncho Williams III, who is a paramount founder of the Cushion Village in Menchum County, has in a video expressed discontentment with the suffering that Ayabacho has inflicted on the people of Amazonia with his defense forces. The fund began his video message by extending New Year greetings, but quickly shifted the tone to address a pressing issue concerning the safety and well-being of the traditional rulers in the northern side of Amazonia. The Paramount leader highlighted that this was the second time Ayabacho had issued threats against the funds of the Northern Zone, emphasizing that enough is enough. The message was unequivocal: the nonsense and the people have been doing for the past years, that we are not having peace in our country and our region is too much. We cannot bear it any longer, the fund said.
While the traditional ruler expressed their dissatisfaction with the ongoing threat and violence perpetrated by the Amazonian Defense Forces against them, the FON emphasized the gravity of the situation, comparing the actions of the ADF to the epitome of evil. FON Willard recounted the atrocities committed by Ayaba Cho and his forces, detailing the killings of several Fons and the burning of palaces. He specifically mentioned the brutal execution of the Fon of Buchi, Atanga Terence, the Fon of Esu in Menchum County, the Fon of Asa village in Donga Matung, the Fon of Andek village in Donga Matung, and the Fon of Jevi village. The traditional ruler did not shy away from addressing the torture inflicted upon their fellow Fons, citing examples such as the Fon of Bambalang, the Fon of Mejang, the Fon of Wazo, and the paramount Fon of Unso. Fon Drew Wilson III condemned these acts as sacrilege, stating, "It is nonsense and rubbish that you rob our tradition and culture in mud and disgracing Fons as and we are seething." He says this.
While expressing his dissatisfaction, the traditional ruler called on the Fon of Makon to take action against Ayabacho's family. In his words, he says, "I wish I was the Fon of Makon. Ayabacho would have been banished from the entire Makon land." The Fon of Cushion said, "It says the urgency is important." Now, in his voice, you could hear the palpable as they declared their readiness to take action against Ayabacho and other elite curtain arrests in the zone. Fonjo William III revealed that funds of the Northern Zone recently had a meeting to discuss the establishment of the Northwest Funds Forum to address the challenges collectively. However, Ayabacho's continued threat and insult have disrupted this initiative, while the traditional rulers pledged to take action against Ayabacho and called for the intervention of government authorities of the countries where the Ayabacho is resident.
Well, the Fons said in his words that they were going to storm the embassies where the Amazonian leaders are found, and they're going to storm the embassies for a week, a month, calling on the government to repatriate the leaders and bring them back for something to be done. This was from Fonju Wilson III. The fund expressed its collective frustration with the rest of the funds with the current situation and emphasized their commitment to ending the violence and restoring peace to the northern zone. The message conveyed a resolute determination to put an end to the ongoing unrest and bring about a sense of normalcy to the lives of the people in the northern zone of Amazonia.
We, the Funds of Northwest, were going to take action against Ayabacho and the other Northwest elite that have been disturbing our region and our country. Enough is enough, Mr. Ayabacho. Of recent, Funds of Northwest had meeting to deliberate on putting Nowefo in place so we can talk as one man, and you started insulting funds that are going to kill them and their families. Young man, that's uncalled for. And it is sacrilege. You have gone far and far. It's enough. Enough is enough. The funds are going to sit up and do something. To this effect, I think we are going to sit up and we are going to storm the embassies where these Amazonian, so-called Amazonian leaders are found. We are going to storm their embassies, even for 1 week, 1 month, calling on the government to repatriate you people back here so that at least something should be done to you people for this, for peace to return to our country. We have suffered enough, our people have suffered. Enough of this nonsense. Enough of this nonsense. You cannot be snatching phones and killing and taking them the bushes, beating them left and right. No, 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 no. We cannot continue taking this, Mr. Yabatu. You have to stop this nonsense with the so-called Amazonian government. Yes. It's an imaginary government that cannot exist and that will never exist.
Into the studio records that the Bui State Forces yesterday, January 10, 2024, handed the La Republique du Cameroon helicopter carrying their terrorist elements, and they were brought down by the Bui warriors in William. The helicopter ran into nearby houses. The death from the attack is expected to mount to a high number.
Oh, well, as you know, Bowie County has been highly utilized since last year, with many terrorizing camping in Tobin Old Cooperative, some taking up ambush positions along the stretch of road from Kumbo to Zekwa. This recent outing of the Amazonian State Army is indeed a testament to the bravery of the Boyi warriors. Their unyielding spirit continues to shine as a beacon of resistance against what is perceived as the cruel occupation of their homeland.
Well, as you know, the Amazonian State Army do not only take a combative stand, but also extends a hand of mercy, issuing a statement pleading with La Republique de Cameroon elements, urging them to lay down their weapons and promise them safe passage to neutral grounds.
Well, an offer of peace amidst conflict, extending to their adversaries the chance to avoid further bloodshed, the Amazonian State Army is persistently advising these La Republic forces to embrace this opportunity for safety.
Well, the call from the Buya warriors reaches out to all Amazonians and their supporters worldwide. The appeal calls for solidarity for justice, freedom, and ultimately peace and injustice. A call to uphold the sublime ideas they cherish so dearly. The fighters employ friends, well wishers, and all who support these values to continue their support, enabling them to carry on this significant fight.
Well, the message is clear. The determination unwavering, with the Boyi County security team standing vigilant with the Amazonian State Army sending a loud and clear message that they will defend their cause until the end. And as the situation develops, there are more updates to this. But for now, we'll wish for the safety and well-being of all, especially in Boye.
Well, moving on, it is rather unfortunate that rice farmers in the Cameroons and especially in Amazonia have better days ahead so far as the failed La Republic de Cameroon is still on board. Well, a regime that has scheduled emergence for 2035, yet the event on ground only further supports the fact that better days are now and completely nothing for the future. While the government that was to emerge must prioritize the development of the home industry to boost production for local consumption and exports. The case with La Republique du Cameroon colonial government is the reverse. Rather, no consideration is made for the farmers, especially those in local rice production.
Well, the BS colonial government is not giving the enterprise farmers the necessary support that they deserve to be competitive in the local markets flooded with imported rice. The colonial regime rather opted to get huge loans to import ready-made rice from foreign countries. Well, with this, you wonder how will the balance for the international trading deficit. Well, to object of this report is basically showing the lack in Bia's colonial regime and how frustrating the local industry in the Cameroons and those of Amazonia in particular have been, having managed this crude tools in the production of the tons of rice they can produce. The farmers of the Ndop local government area of the Ngoketunja County of the northern zone of Amazonia have finally cried out to the colonial government of La Republique du Cameroon to do the needful.
Rice farmers in Ndop have mustered courage and faced the colonial government of La Republique du Cameroon for not providing them with the financial, technical, and equipment support they need to be able to be more productive and meet the growing needs of the local markets. They were talking during the launching and harvesting season of the paddy rice as well as the launching of the land preparation of the next planting season. This was on Friday, the 5th of January 2024, at the head office of the UNVDA in Dap, Ngokentuja County of Amazonia.
Well, farmers representing Lukong, Lovning, tabled a wide range of needs that could reduce their burden and encourage improved production and productivity to the general manager of the La Republique du Cameroon Colonial Rice Management Body, the Upper Non Valley Development Authority, the UNVDA. The needs presented include the drainage of canals and dams, the provision of more farming equipment that can enhance productivity, and the construction of farm to market roads. For the farming season of 2023 alone, the Ndop rice farmers were able, with crude tools, to produce 1,300 tons of rice and transportation during difficult conditions, given that there were no farm roads. Production will simply skyrocket if the colonial government steps in to open farm to market roads, updating farming equipment and technical assistance to these farmers, but sadly not.
Some youths in the area who were the workforce of rice cultivation have fled the area from the wanton assassination of youths by La Republique du Cameroon colonial forces during the ongoing war in Amazonia. As much as the colonial government of Paul Biya owes the farmers of Ndop their share of the nation's cake in the form of farming equipment and opening of farm to market roads, the colonial forces must be withdrawn for the youthful population to return to Ndop. While revisiting his historical address to the nation on December 31st, the President of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, Dr. Samuel Ikonesako, without missing words, said the restoration of the government of Southern Cameroon's Amazonia on the 7th of December marks the end of an era of confusion. Remember that on Tuesday, we started the series and looked at three major aspects, which is the defense, the historical achievement, and diplomacy. Well, today we have other sessions of this particular speech we will analyze. Now, Dr. Sacco emphasized that even though many voices, but is one government now, many leaders, but one government, many activists, but one government, and the government he has assured with the Amazonian fully fledged government is in place. He also said that the government can represent our people within the community of nations and engage with international stakeholders without any ambiguity regarding our legality or legitimacy. Now let's get the president's speech.
We are no longer confined to the temporality of the term interim, nor are we associated with the secessionist connotation that goes with structures lacking historical precedent. This change is not merely in nomenclature, but in substance. It has fundamentally altered the way we conduct our struggle moving forward. Previously, when we did not restore our government, but established a new authority structure called the interim government, our argument was logically reduced to one of self-determination, a common theme amongst secessionist movements. However, our cause was never that of secession, for we are not pursuing independence or self-determination per se, because we don't have to attain independence twice. Instead, we have reinstated our independence and the government of John Foncha, which was dissolved through annexation.
Oh, well, Dr. Sacco, the altruist and being the leader that rallies during the olive branch. President Sacco, in his soul-searching message, reassures the people in for increase in the zeal amongst critical masses at home and our comrades gathered around the across the diaspora, and says that we are going to advance the quest radically this year, even more than ever, getting into the new year, focusing on the enemy and the works that needs to be done. He talked about the restored government in exile that represents all Amazonians and encourage everyone to endeavor to mend those bridges within the struggle that can be mended, projects that unite Amazonians even more and diminish what divides Amazonia. Amazonia is the only country that is available to all Southern Cameroonians, and no one is more Amazonian than others, as we've heard him say, was something that he said again, as no one can do this alone. The president urged the never again generation to understand that the buck stops with the generation and to for all as well not to disappoint. Well, here's a video of the president saying more about this.
Unless you don't care anymore about the fight we chose to embark on. In the name of our ancestors, from Augustine Gomjua to Molanjo Litumbe, please, we did not have more than one government in the southern Cameroons in 1960, even though we had many political formations. So what we have collectively restored is that one government that we had. In the United States, that name and its logo are trademarked and protected. We are happy we arrived here only after our interim structure had been vandalized and ridiculed by haters and power mongers. Hence, the restoration of the government of Southern Cameroon's Amazonia marks the end of an era of confusion. The international community may no longer tell us they do not know the authority structure in Amazonia. Yes, we have many voices, but we have one government. We have many leaders, but one government. We have many activists, but one government. This government, the government of Southern Cameroon's Amazonia, also known as the government of Federal Republic of Amazonia, is like the mother hen that gathers its chicks. It is the umbrella that covers all Amazonians and the shed that shelters every Southern Cameroonian. We pledge to do what Foncha did when he was at the helm of this government. He led a delegation to Fumban that included opposition members. Our government shall do the same when a genuine opportunity for immediate settlement is presented.
Now, we must also say that those who may not understand why Amazonians are fighting may not understand. The selfless President Sacco took time to explain that the cause of Ambazonians was never that of secession, because Ambazonians are not pursuing independence or self-determination, because Ambazonians don't have to attain independence twice. Instead, the president emphasized that we have reinstated our independence and the government of John Foncha, which was dissolved through annexation. So the choice, therefore, is a return to full legality. Of course, the Ambazonian leaders have reclaimed the nation by restoring its government and action. And so the struggle is now focused on gaining recognition and achieving complete liberation. A referendum would be a honorable prescription for an independent country that was legally in existence, then annexed and its legal government dissolved. Everyone should know that the mission of Ambazonia now consists of two main objectives, which the president stated would be liberation and recognition. Now let's get that speech.
I want to assure you compatriots that we are almost there, and therefore your continuous focus and steadfastness are necessary for us to cross the finish line sooner than later. We will not be shy to seek membership into relevant and strategic international organizations as the legitimate representative of the nation of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. We will crisscross continents to explore possibilities for Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia's recognition and admission as a member of the international community. For this to happen, we will need to coordinate our efforts. We will need to redouble our sacrifices and mobilize strategically. It will not be by deceiving you with a do-nothing diplomatic mission in an on-demand event center in Washington. We must do so rather by going out for the heavy lifting through direct engagement with stakeholders, governments, and international organizations. Besides, in this liberation phase, we are the ones knocking on the doors of diplomats, not the other way around. So we cannot open an office, a physical office for diplomats to come and meet us. Hiring an office space for any amount for the purpose of signing asylum affidavits is an out-of-touch proposition.
His acknowledgement, and as part of his remark, he expressed his appreciation to those who critically analyzed the early misstep, realizing it was contradictory to the argument as a movement which is centered on the annexation at independence of the Southern Cameroonians. He says that we have received encouraging messages from many across the aisles applauding the move as a landmark and historic decision. But in retrospect, the president had done this earlier and had spent the past 7 years presenting the case correctly as the restored government seeking recognition today. Well, let's have more of that from the president.
When they dismantled our government, they disregarded its legal status, which had been internationally recognized by the Trusteeship Council of the United Nations and the United Nations General Assembly and the Trust Administrator of Britain. Needless to say, the dissolution was null and void. The honest misstep of not fully restoring our institutions on October 1st, 2017, by the then Governing Council has now been rectified. With our full-fledged government now in place, we can represent our people within the community of nations and engage the international stakeholders without any ambiguity regarding our legality or legitimacy. We are no longer confined to the temporality of the term interim, nor are we associated with the secessionist connotation that goes with structures lacking historical precedent. This change is not merely in nomenclature, but in substance. It has fundamentally altered the way we conduct our struggle moving forward.
Well, breaking news coming in from Okoyong village in Manyu County has it that Manu County and Okoyong village particularly, has been rocked by tragedy just this afternoon. In a grave incident that echoes past unrest in the county, a Colonial Gendarme officer has been implicated in the fatal shooting of an innocent pregnant woman. During a confrontation with a local transport driver over a bribe, sources report that the encounter escalated when the officer demanded 1,000 francs CFAs as bribery, roughly equivalent to $2, leading to a senseless act of violence that has left the community in mourning and once again raised concerns about law enforcement practices in the area by the forces of occupation. The victim, identified as Stando Bernice, was reportedly 7 months pregnant when she was caught in the line of fire. The shooting occurred when a driver allegedly refused to comply with what has been described as an illicit control point set up by local forces in the Okoyong village. This is sad and really sad.
Well, this is very unfortunate. Witnesses say that the Colonial Gendarmerie, purportedly operating under the bees, a term that residents use to denote the French security squad, accused politics fired upon the vehicle. It is claimed that they were attempting to extort the driver, a situation that has become all too familiar to the local populace. Tragically, Miss Bernice was not in the vehicle but was instead crossing the street when she was struck by the bullet and fatally wounded. The question is, why should an officer even shoot randomly?
Very good question. A question that is actually waiting for answers. Now, the incident has drawn immediate comparison to a similar tragedy from 2 years ago. A young child referred to affectionately as Baby Carlos was also a casualty of an officer's bullet in Boya, a shooting that was sparked by a demand for an even smaller bribe of 500 francs CFAs under $1. Now, these recurring instances of violence over minor bribes have incited public outrage and fueled calls for systemic changes within the security infrastructure to curb the use of lethal force over trivial disputes. The genocidal onslaught against Amazonia is so imminent, and we're wondering why the international community is still seemingly disinclined.
To gain more insight into this incident, our correspondent on the ground in Mamfe explains that currently the situation in Okoyong is tense, with residents expressing a mix of shock and anger. Many's death is resonating deeply with many here who had hoped that past tragedies would lead to reform. Community leaders are calling for justice and a thorough investigation, and there is a palpable desire for an end to what many see as a pattern of abuse and corruption. Well, I will be staying on top of the story as it develops and bringing you live updates throughout the evening.
Well, that was the detail that we'll be checking back with for more updates. Meanwhile, the authorities they are yet to release any official statement on the incidents that just happened this afternoon. But with rising tensions and the shadow of previous tragedies looming over this latest loss, the demand for answers and accountability grows ever more urgent. Now, as we continue to follow this story closely, we invite you to stay with us for ongoing coverage analysis. Um, well, our deepest sympathies go out to the family of Tando Bernice during this unimaginable, difficult time.
Now let's take a visit to the landslide victims. The La Republic de Cameroon colonial government is in the hands of dormant agent administrators who are dormant in their thinking. Is it a government that is not productive? They only participate with firefighting moves when there is havoc as a result of poor governance. While the corrupt nature of the colonial government, building permits are issued to people constructed in areas considered as risk zones just because money is involved. Most of the reason why people see a certain opportunity in risk zone is because the colonial government is not giving them another alternative. The colonial state media made an announcement that all those involved in the last Bankolo landslide have been compensated. Well, the survivors have debunked that they have not received a dime.
Well, the full report has it that homeless victims of the Bankolo landslide in French Cameroon, colonial capital Yaoundé, have said they have not received, they are yet to receive a dime from the lie telling Bier's colonial government, despite news circulating that the president disbursed the sum of 92 million francs CFAs to be shared amongst the victims. Now, they said the news was not true, adding that they were never given money to look for a home or restart or even have any better lives after this sad incident. According to one of the victims, it is a rumor. No France has been handed to us. We were still waiting for the promise to be fulfilled since the announcement was made. We have not seen any colonial state official with our eyes. They say that they are still stuck in misery, frustration, and abandonment at the CPDM party house. Now, the colonial government cares more for the dead and not the living. Paradoxically, the families of those who have lost their loved ones received a financial gesture, being the sum of 2 million francs CFAs, while survivors who are supposed to be the prioritized uh, persons to prevent further deaths have not been given any.
Now, while waiting, the homeland survivors continues to endure difficult living conditions at the Cameroon's People's Democratic Movement Party's house, accommodating women, men, children, and the old. This is it with corrupt government officials. The choice to target the families of those who died as a result of the Mbankolo landslide is a calculated move to embezzle the allocations, given the figures of the number of deaths are controversial. The colonial administrators tactically shy away from survivors who were confined in a particular area with the exact number unknown to be the first beneficiaries. Well, now let's get to the African report.
Well, according to officials in Somalia, the Al Shabaab insurgent groups, which is linked to Al Qaeda, reportedly attacked a United Nations helicopter on Wednesday. Yesterday, the incident took place in Zinder village, an area controlled by the fighters in the Galgaduud region of the Galmudug state. The Minister of Internal Security of the Galmudug state, Mohammed Abdi Aden Gabube, mentioned that the helicopter had to make an emergency landing due to an engine failure. Unfortunately, one person was killed and five others were captured by the group. The official also added that six foreigners and one Somali national were on board.
Well, Morocco to lead the UN Human Rights Council despite South Africa's disapproval. On Wednesday, Morocco emerged victorious in a vote to lead the United Nations Human Rights Council following a heated competition with South Africa. South Africa expressed concerns about Rabat human rights records, stating that it made Morocco unsuitable to preside over the council. Ambassador Omar Zimber, the Moroccan candidate, received 30 votes, while his South African opponent, Ambassador Maxlisi Nkosi, secured 17 votes in a secret ballot held in Geneva. Prior to the vote, Nkosi voices believed to Richards that Morocco was the complete opposite of what the Council stands for, and that its election would undermine the credibility of the body.
The rotation of member states after serving on the United Nations Human Rights Council for a term of 3 years allows for fresh perspectives and diverse voices to contribute to the work of promoting and protecting human rights globally, which is why South Africa's take on Morocco couldn't be enough to overpower the votes that Morocco got over South Africa. Well, on other parts of Africa, Joseph Boakai, who secured a narrow victory against incumbent George Weah in a November runoff election, is set to be inaugurated as Liberia's new president on January 22nd. And finally, in West Africa, we have the new and latest Ghana um, who's beating the world record, Ghana chef Afai Latu Abdul Razak breaking records, the cooking record in Ghana cookathon describing it a national assignment. That's about it on the African scene. Coming up next, the Global Report.
All right, on the global scene, let's start with the Israel-Hamas war. The UN Security Council has approved a resolution on Wednesday calling on Yemen's Houthi rebel to cease its brazen attacks in the Red Sea. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is visiting the region, warned that there will be consequences for the continued Houthi attacks as after the U.S. Navy shot down a barrage of Houthis missiles and drones launched from Yemen. The food situation in northern Gaza is absolutely horrific, the World Health Organization said, and a British doctor told the press that nothing prepared him for the daily horror of working in a hospital in Gaza.
While in North Korea, an artillery drills has been conducted amid tensions with South Korea. On January 5th, 2024, this year, North Korea escalated tensions with South Korea by firing over 200 artillery shells into the sea near a tense maritime border and towards two South Korean islands. This act, described by Seoul as a provocation, led to a response in the form of live fire drills by South Korea. The North Korean firing resulted in the evacuation of residents of Yongpyong and Bangyong, two remote islands controlled by South Korea, who took refuge in bomb shelters under orders of the South Korean military. These islands are located near the Northern Limit Line (NLL), a contested maritime border between the two Koreas in the Yellow Sea. North Korea claimed that its defensive coastal units fired 192 shells in response to military actions by South Korea's military gangsters in recent days. According to the official North Korean news agency KCNA, North Korea also threatened an unprecedented strong response if Seoul continues to make provocative moves.
Meanwhile, the US and the UK hint at military action after largest Houthi attack in the Red Sea. The US and the UK have hinted that they could take military action against the Yemen's Houthi rebels after they rebelled the largest attack yet on Red Sea shipping. Carrier-based jets and warships shot down 21 drones and missiles launched by the Iran-backed group on Tuesday night. The UN Security Council passed a resolution on Wednesday demanding an immediate end to the attacks. The text endorsed the right of UN member states to defend their vessels. The Houthis reacted scornfully to it. Their spokesman, Mohammed Ali, called the resolution a political game. They claim to be targeting Israeli-linked vessels in protest at Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza.
Now, global firepower ranks the conventional military capabilities of 145 countries. Israel is ranked 17th, while Iran is ranked 14th in the world for military strength, according to the Global Firepower Rankings for 2024. Now, since 2006, Global Firepower has published a ranking of the military forces of 145 countries, rating each country's conventional means of making war on land, sea, and in the air according to over 60 factors. A perfect score in the rating would be a 0.0. As part of its survey, Global Firepower compares rival countries such as Russia and Ukraine, China and the US, and Israel and Iran. Israel receives a rating of 0.2596 versus 0.2269 for Iran. Israel's advantages over Iran is said to be its geography. The size of its military reserves, 115,000 more personnel. Its defense budget, $14 billion higher, and its air power, 61 more aircraft.
Well, Blinken seeks to maintain U.S. pressure on Israel in high stakes visit as Middle East tensions skyrocket. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be the latest in a long parade of Biden national security officials to meet face to face with the Israeli government when he arrives in Tel Aviv this week for his fifth visit since the October 7 attack by Hamas. Blinken's meetings in Israel, one of the nine stops on a frenetic week-long crisscrossing of the region, are part of what U.S. officials say is constant effort to stay in touch with and in front of Israeli officials in an attempt to keep Israel's war machine in check as the conflict drags on. What happens is you get in a room and say, "This is what we need to see," a U.S. official told the CNN, noting that breakthroughs with Israel have typically occurred after a visit by Blinken or a call from President Joe Biden. Sometimes the Israelis agree with what the U.S. says the official said, and sometimes they don't, and negotiations ensue. Well, that's all we have for you tonight. But before we go, let's take a recap of the major stories.
Oh, well, on Undaunted tonight.
Well, thank you so much for staying tuned. Well, before we go, let's give you the highlights of our major stories.
On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Ndop rice farmers crying out for help to boost production, La Republic terrorist helicopters shot down by the Buyi warriors, and Dr. Sacco revisits darkest pages of the struggle.
Well, tonight on Undaunted, we told you that Paramount Fund of Caution Village in Menchum County sends strong warning to Ayabacho and his boys. Also tonight, in Bankalo households remains homeless as survivors debunk news that they have received financial assistance. On the African scene, we told you that Morocco is to lead UN Human Rights Council despite South Africa's disapproval. North Korea conducted artillery drills amid tensions with South Africa was on the global scene. And that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news on church stories. On behalf of Mr. Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for staying tuned.
We leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night.
We don't want God to bless them.